Section 1. Introduction Defenses Against Crime. The Pakistan Penal Code or PPC lays out the rules for crimes and punishments. But what happens when someone commits an act that looks like a crime but isn't meant to be? That's where general exceptions come in. Chapter 4 of the PPC, which covers sections 76 to 95, provides legal defenses. Situations where a person may be excused from criminal liability even if their actions seem to fit the description of a crime. These exceptions recognize that sometimes circumstances justify or excuse actions that would otherwise be illegal. They protect individuals who acted reasonably, under duress, or for the greater good. Understanding these exceptions is crucial for grasping the complexities of criminal law. They demonstrate that determining guilt goes beyond simply observing an act. It requires examining the intent, context, and surrounding circumstances. Section 2, Section 76, Acting on Lawful Orders. Section 76 of the PPC provides a defense for individuals acting under the orders of a superior, as long as those orders are lawful and the person believes them to be so. This exception recognizes that individuals in subordinate positions, like soldiers or police officers, have a duty to obey lawful commands. For instance, a soldier firing a weapon during a war under the orders of a commanding officer is not committing murder simply because they took a life. The act is justified under Section 76 because they were following lawful military orders. However, this defense only holds if the order itself is lawful. An order to commit a krisagandi case, like executing a prisoner without trial, does not provide protection under this section. The individual following such an order would be held accountable for the crime. Section 3, Section 77, Actions of Judges and Magistrates. Section 77 grants immunity to judges and magistrates acting within their judicial capacity. They are protected from criminal liability for actions taken in good faith while exercising their judicial functions, even if those actions later turn out to be erroneous. This exception acknowledges the crucial role of the judiciary in upholding justice and recognizes that judges must be free to make decisions without fear of personal repercussions. For example, a judge sentencing someone based on evidence presented in court, even if that evidence is later found to be flawed, is not criminally liable because they acted in their judicial capacity. However, this protection does not extend to acts done with malice, bad faith, or beyond the scope of their judicial authority. A judge accepting a bribe or engaging in criminal activity outside their courtroom is not shielded by this section. Section 4, Section 78, Acts done in good faith. Section 78 protects individuals acting in good faith for the advancement of justice. This applies to situations where a person, believing their actions are legally justified, takes steps to apprehend an offender or prevent a crime. For example, a police officer arresting someone based on a credible tip-off about their involvement in a crime, even if that person is later proven innocent, is protected under Section 78. The officer acted in good faith based on the information available at the time. The key element here is the genuine belief that the action taken was lawful and necessary for the purpose of justice. However, this exception does not protect acts done with malicious intent or without any reasonable basis. Section 79 addresses situations where someone commits an act believing it to be legal due to a mistake of fact. If the person would have been justified in their actions, had the fact been as they believed, they are not criminally liable. Imagine a person picking up an umbrella from a stand, genuinely believing it to be theirs. only to discover later that it belonged to someone else. This is a mistake of fact. Had the umbrella actually been theirs, taking it would not be theft. Therefore, they are not liable for theft due to the honest mistake. However, this exception requires the mistake to be reasonable and honest. A deliberate ignorance of facts or a mistake arising from negligence will not provide protection. Section 6, Section 80. Accidents. Section 80 exempts accidents from criminal liability. An accident is defined as an event occurring without criminal intention or knowledge in the normal course of doing a lawful act. For instance, a carpenter accidentally injuring someone with a hammer while working on a construction site would not be held criminally liable under this section. The injury was unintentional and occurred while performing a lawful act. However, this exception does not cover situations where the act itself is unlawful or done with negligence. Driving recklessly and causing an accident is not excusable just because it was an accident. The reckless driving itself is a criminal offense. Section 7. Section 81 to 86 and 91. Necessity and duress. Sections 81 to 86 and 91 deal with situations where someone commits an act out of necessity or under duress. Necessity arises when a person is forced to choose between two evils to prevent a greater harm. Duress, on the other hand, involves a threat that compels a person to act against their will. For example, a doctor performing an emergency surgery without consent to save a patient's life acts out of necessity. They are justified in breaking the law to prevent a greater harm, the loss of life. Similarly, a cashier handing over money to a robber under threat of violence is acting under duress and is not criminally liable for the theft. These sections recognize that in certain extreme situations, individuals may be forced to act in ways they normally wouldn't. However, the harm caused must be less than the harm prevented, and the action must be a last resort with no reasonable alternative. Section 8, Section 87 to 90 and 92 to 94. Consent and its limits. Sections 87 to 90 and 92 to 94 address situations where consent plays a role in determining criminal liability. Consent in general negates the criminal nature of an act if the act is done with the informed and voluntary agreement of the person involved. For example, participating in a boxing match involves acts that could be considered assault. However, the boxer's consent to engage in the fight makes it a lawful sporting event. Similarly, a surgeon performing a surgery with the patient's informed consent is not committing a crime. However, the law places limits on consent. Consent obtained through fraud, misrepresentation, or coercion is not valid. Moreover, consent cannot be used as a defense for certain serious offenses like murder or grievous hurt, as one cannot legally consent to their own death or serious injury. Section 9. Conclusion. The importance of general exceptions. The general exceptions in the Pakistan Penal Code are crucial for ensuring justice and fairness within the legal system. They acknowledge that human behavior is complex and that criminal liability should not always automatically follow from an act that superficially appears criminal. These exceptions protect individuals who act in good faith, under duress, or in situations where their actions are justified by the circumstances. They prevent the law from being used as a tool to punish those who are morally blameless or who acted reasonably in difficult situations. Understanding these exceptions is essential for anyone seeking to understand the nuances of criminal law in Pakistan. They highlight the importance of examining the context, intent, and surrounding circumstances of an act before assigning criminal liability.